Alright, so I've seen the latest Michael movie. It was a pretty solid movie. I've heard there's some people hating it, and it's just gonna be a trend with my video each time. My hair just looks like shit. I should really just start fixing it before I start recording. I also need a fucking fresh trim, mate. Yeah, I need that buzz cut back, mate. But anyways, yeah, I seen the latest movie, Michael, and I heard people shitting on it, just saying, "Yo, it's bad. It's just not good." I just seen it got a 34% Rotten Tomatoes, and thinking, "Bro, that movie's class. The movie's great. The movie made Michael's life look so much more interesting." And I never really gave a shit enough to look for, to look into Michael Phelps, Michael Jackson's life. I don't know. I just kind of like live under a rock with a lot of shit. I don't know a lot of shit that other people would know. I should start educating myself on more stuff. But yeah, the movie actually made his life seem so much more interesting. The movie is pretty entertaining, and it's just a great movie overall. And his dad in that movie, he is a fucking bastard in that movie. And I decided, you know what, I'm gonna make a video where I basically compare the dude Terrence Fletcher from Whiplash, that movie, and comparing Joe from Michael. The only difference is that Terrence Fletcher, he's the real ass dude. He's a fucking fictional, abusive teacher, and then in the, Joe, he was a real dude. The Michael movie was basically was based off of Michael's life, and it's like all accurate to what happened in real life. If anything, I thought Joe was bad in the movie. He's a lot fucking worse in real life. Some of the shit he done here is actually insane. It makes him seem like a madman. But anyways. We're just gonna start off right now comparing them. Number one I have over here is Control. So pretty much they're both really controlling, really manipulative of teachers. In Whiplash, Fletcher, he basically was like this manipulative, smart, gaslighting teacher towards Neiman. And Joe, he's just abusive and controlled Michael Jackson for his whole life. So I'd say that's probably the biggest difference between each of the controls. It also depends where they were as well. So with Neiman, he only got controlled by Fletcher at school. It's not like Terrence would just follow him home and be like, "Yo, play me, get it on the right fucking tempo, man." But Joe, he had full control over Michael since he was 5 years old, I'm fairly sure. And the control only stopped when he turned 25, 26 years old. So he had control over Michael Jackson for 20 years. That's 2 decades, and he's just controlling him, trying to mold him into this successful superstar. And Terrence and Fletcher, he only got 1 year, and it still worked on Neiman. But that's just a huge difference where they're at. Neiman, he didn't really have as much type of grasp on or Fletcher, he didn't really have as much type of grasp on Neiman as Joe did on his son, because Fletcher is only a teacher to him. You don't Neiman would only see him at school, but outside of school he could have just he could just do his own shit. He could do his own thing. Fletcher couldn't tell him the practice outside of there. But then in school, Michael, he had no childhood or anything, and he's controlled his whole life pretty much. He's constantly controlled. His dad would just get him to dance whenever. He literally could not escape it. Neiman, he had a life outside of school, outside of band practice and all. And yeah, I think control. When it comes to control, Joe's is a lot worse. Next one is methods. They both use pretty similar methods. I have a feeling all of these. I have a feeling with all of these options, it's gonna be pretty one sided on who's bad. I just realized that now. But yeah, with methods they have pretty similar methods. But with Fletcher, basically his methods would include screaming in your face, trying to get you to get the right fucking tempo. He literally in one of the scenes he when one of the most famous scenes actually, when Nemo was getting the wrong, when he's trying to play Whiplash, he's getting the wrong tempo. He wasn't doing it right. So then Fletcher was like, that's not quite my fucking tempo, man. I just want to try that again there and get it right. So then he's doing it again. Nemo was just walking around bopping his head, and then out of fucking nowhere he whipped out his surprise attack. He charged up his ultimate. He got 100% on that ultimate thing in Overwatch, and pressed triangle and threw that chair straight at Neiman's head. Man tried to decapitate his head with a chair for getting something wrong on the drums. Then he proceeded to go up to Neiman's face and verbally assault him. He psychologically abused the shit out of him. He screamed in his fucking face and slapped the shit out of him as well, trying to get him, trying to get him to understand whether he was rushing or dragging. And apparently, I don't think, I'm not sure, I'm fairly sure it has been confirmed that Neiman did kind of do something wrong, but I also heard that like Neiman didn't do anything wrong in this scene. Terrence just wanted to know, if Neiman knows what he's doing, and that's a lot worse. And he literally done that in like an earlier scene as well in the movie. He like screamed in someone else's face, being like, "Yo, were you out of tune?" I don't know. He didn't know. So then Neiman just screams in his face, and be like, "Why didn't you fucking say so?" And fucks off the student out of the class. And beforehand, Neiman. He was saying to Fletcher, who he was saying to Neiman, like, "Yo, it's okay, just take it easy, just go with the flow, don't stress about it." And also, this is something I've seen as well. He was asking Neiman beforehand about like, "Yo, what's your family like? Any musicians in the family?" He's trying to dig deep into Fletcher. I keep getting them mixed up. Fletcher, he's trying to dig deep into Neiman's little impressionable brain, and basically being like, "Yo, any family, any musical any musical family members? Like, what's up with that?" And basically Neiman is like, "I'm motherless. It's kind of like when your dad goes to leave the milk, except that's what my mom did. She just straight up and abandoned my dad." And he literally used that as a weapon against Neiman, basically saying like, "Oh yeah, you are a worthless limp dick, the piece of shit whose mommy left daddy because he found out he was in Eugene O'Neill."
You are a worthless, friendless, faggot-lipped little piece of shit whose mommy left daddy when she figured out he wasn't Eugene O'Neill, and who is now weeping and slobbering all over my drum set like a fucking 9-year-old girl. So for the final father-fucking time, say it louder! I'm upset!
He said that to him in front of the entire class. Bro exposed, his personal life in front of the whole class, and actually got him to announce that he was upset when Neiman started crying. So like he'll do that shit to try and gaslight you, get into your head. Like later on in the movie as well. He was saying when they met at a club, Neiman basically went to see Fletcher, and Fletcher, he was like playing piano with a band, and then they had a little chat, and Andrew's basically saying, or Neiman's basically saying, "Yo, Andrew, I need you back." That's Neiman's full name, Andrew Neiman. Andrew, I need you back. Basically, I have no drummer. And then when it actually came time to drum, Fletcher came up to him and be like, "I know you did it. I'm not an idiot," because Neiman testified against Andrew because Andrew was an abusive piece of shit. He tried to get him fired. And Fletcher got revenge over that. He lured Neiman into like a false sense of security, being like, "Yo, you're just gonna be drumming, man. It's gonna be fine. You're gonna be playing." But he really only done that just to fuck him over.
I'm using the studio band playlist. Caravan, Whiplash. I need somebody who really knows those charts. Hey, take the weekend and think about it. You think I'm fucking stupid?
What?
I know it was you. And we're going to do some old standards for you, but first we're going to start out with a new tune by Tim Simonek called Upswinging.
And then with Joe, he would also abuse him. But holy shit, man, the fucking abuse that Joe inflicted upon Michael was so much more worse than what Fletcher would have done. Right, so basically, his son, Joe would basically do the exact same things with Michael that Fletcher did with Neiman. But I'm not even sure if it was just to build him up or make him more stronger. It actually seemed to traumatize Michael. Michael had lifelong trauma and PTSD from his dad just abusing the shit out of him. His dad was basically saying you have a big fat ass nose and all, and that encouraged Miles Morales from Spider-Man. That encouraged Michael to basically be like, right, so I'm insecure about my nose. I'm gonna get plastic surgery and get a nose job. I'm very sure a lot of other Michael siblings also got nose jobs, so he must have abused the shit out of them as well. One of the worst things I've heard about this guy, and Michael literally said this in the interview, I never thought that he would have done this, but one of the things that Joe done to Michael is that once he done this thing where basically, this is really fucked up and weird. He basically got Michael to strip down. He oiled his body up and started whipping him with a cable cord because it would hurt.
He would make you strip nude first. He would oil you down. Your whole ritual. He would oil you down. So when the flip of the ironing cord hit you, it would just, and it was just like me dying. And you just flipped all over your face, your back, everywhere.
This man done a whole PDD ritual on him. He just, fucking doused him in, I don't know, sunflower, oil or some shit. And just started whipping him because it would hurt more. This guy gave no fucks. And then whenever the Jackson 5 would perform, he'd be sitting there with belt in hand, rehearsing, fucking probably practicing this shit in his head. like being like, yo, this is how I'm gonna beat my son and all. Like, if they fuck up, I'm just gonna hit them as hard as I can with the belt. And he would threaten to hit them as hard as he can with the belt if they fucked up even once. So like if Michael Jackson's singing voice went like above like 1 decimal or some shit, or if they just misplaced like a step, it's night time and time to beat the shit out of you with the belt. Every time they would fuck up, which is so much more worse than what Fletcher would do. Like, if this was a teacher doing this now, if Fletcher would like abuse Neiman to the same degree that Joe abused Michael, it still wouldn't even be as bad, because Fletcher, like I said, he's just a teacher. He's only in Neiman's life for like half of the day. Joe was in Michael's life for his whole life, for the whole fucking 20 years, from 5 to like 25 or 26. He was just using those methods and abusing him, trying to mold him into like become a great superstar and all. But he tried to claim, be like, yo, so I'm just doing it to raise my kids to be good, because there was like a lot of gang violence where they lived. I don't know, it's just some place called Gary, named after like a snail in SpongeBob. It's like a place in America, some Gary. I can't remember. I don't remember exactly where it is, but I know it's a place called Gary, and he's basically just doing it because there's a lot of gang violence and shit. He's basically trying to teach his sons how to have respect. So another thing actually that he done, which is even more, which is like shows how much controlling and how much he really cares about Michael as like a business product more than his actual fucking son. One time he came when it was like at night, everyone was sleeping, and he threatened to break down the door if the door wasn't open. They didn't let him in. He broke that door down and started getting mad at Michael, being like, "Yo, why did you not sign the record deal? You didn't sign the record deal so we can make more money." He beat his ass because he didn't just sign a piece of paper. It's crazy. This guy seems like a psychopath.
Like there's sometimes I'd be in bed at night sleeping. It's 12 at night. The door's locked. So I'm giving you 5 seconds. Open. I'm gonna kick it down. And you start kicking it. Boom, kick it, like breaking the door. And I'm, why did you sign that contract today? I go, I don't know. He goes, well, sign it. If you don't sign it, you're in trouble.
Next one is the environment. Now, I'm not sure if there really is any point in me adding this, but because I already mentioned this. But yeah, the environment of Fletcher was pretty much in school. It was only hard for like half of Neiman's life. He had like free will to do what he wanted outside of it as well. So yeah, he really only had to deal with him in school. And then with Michael Jackson, he had to deal with him his whole life. He basically forced. He had no choice. He already mentioned this. I don't think there's any point in that section, to be honest. Personality. Now, the personality-wise, both of them are pretty delusional and fail to see where their errors and mistakes were. Both of them thought, what I done was a great thing as well. I don't really care. I think this has actually had some part in molding them and making them successful people that they were. Terence Fletcher's pretty much philosophy is that like. The two most harmful words in the English dictionary are good job, buddy. So like someone says good job to you, that's not good, because according to him, if you tell someone good job as like a teacher, they'll pretty much like not encourage them to practice more, because they don't really see anything wrong with their playing style. So they're just like, oh, why practice more? Why should I have to practice? The teacher said good job. What I'm doing is grand. I don't need to do anything more with my playing style.
There are no two words in the English language more harmful than good job.
But is there a line? Maybe you go too far and you discourage the next Charlie Parker from ever becoming Charlie Parker?
No, man, no. Because the next Charlie Parker would never be discouraged.
But then with Fletcher, he never said good job to any of his students. He would just, keep pushing him more and more and more, no matter how good he did. If they'd done something good, he'd be like, oh, okay, that's grand. Now do something even harder, bro. So his thing was basically like, what he was trying to do. He's trying to push students beyond what was expected of him. He's trying to push them to their very limit. He's trying to make them reach their most peak potential. And Neiman actually brought up a good point and said, when does like a line get drawn? When do you decide, this is a bit too far, maybe I shouldn't go up to this guy's face and scream at him and bark at him like a dog every time he fucks up? And Fletcher's like, oh, there isn't a line. It's never too far. It's always grand. It's always acceptable. Because if they get discouraged from me screaming at them, they were just never meant to be. It was never meant to be, really. Like, it was just kind of a failed molding creation process of a legend. I wouldn't get my next Charlie Parker if he's discouraged by me just like screaming at him and calling him like a slur against a slur against gay people and shit. Yeah, neither of them thought it was grand. Like with Michael Jackson's dad, he thought he didn't even like he's. I think he's even more delusional than Fletcher, because with Joe, he kind of just saw it. He didn't see his abuse. He's like, oh, you don't abuse your kids, you don't beat them, you discipline them. That's how you're supposed to raise them. Yeah, you're supposed to, strip them, oil them up, and, beat them with a cord, maybe even tree branches sometimes. Yeah, this man would beat Michael with tree branches. He kind of just saw it as just like a necessary part, make Michael this superstar that he is. And he actually said in a Piers Morgan interview that I watched today, he's glad he was tough on him. Yeah, he's glad he done all that shit to him. He thought that, that was necessary for him to treat Michael the way he was.
But do you have any regrets that you may have been a little bit too tough on some of them?
Well, I'm glad I was tough, because look what I came out with. I came out with some kids that everybody loved all over the world.
He also thinks that nowadays parents are like way too soft. There needs to be a couple more beings implemented in today's society. Everyone's all sensitive and shit. Also forgot to mention this in methods. They're like Michael and his siblings. They never called Joe by dad. Joe basically told Michael and all like, yo, I'm not Ladea Jackson. I think that's her name. One of the sisters tried to call him dad and be like, yo, I'm not your dad. I'm Joe to you. Just pretend. Pretend I'm not your dad, just pretend I'm like your manager, pretty much. That's what relationship he wanted with his, kids, so he could distance himself from that kind of relationship, so he doesn't have to feel guilty about beating his children, so he can, so it's like easier to control them all without feeling any guilt or emotion. That's what someone says, and it seems to make sense. And now we have actually two more sections left. Is gold. So with Fletcher's goal, pretty much what he wanted to do with Neiman is he wanted to mold him, to his exact image. He wanted to basically make him like one of the greats, like Buddy Rich or Charlie Parker. He's trying to make him like the next best thing. He's trying to make him one of the best drummers in the world. Like everyone would love him all. And that's pretty much his goal. But with Joe, he wanted to make Michael one of the greats as well. But he also wanted to use Michael for his money. Like, I looked this up beforehand. He's like demanding like a $15,000 monthly allowance with this like thing called like Invent or something. I can't remember. It's basically like this thing where basically you get like a certain, where you get like a monthly allowance for like expenses and stuff like that. And that's what he wanted from Michael. He actually heavily relied on Michael for like most of his life, for like income and money and shit. This fucking melted wax figure of a man didn't have like a job or anything. He just leeched off his son like a parasite. And with Fletcher, he's just abusing him to make him, a legend. With Joe, he's just kind of trying to abuse him to make him like a money making machine, and get money off of him. And he wanted to like open up shops and all to even make more money off of Michael's success, pretty much. And then the last one we have is outcomes. Michael, he became a legend in the in pop music. He literally became the king of pop. He ended up being traumatized for life. Michael did say, this is insane as well. He said that like whenever his dad would walk in, whenever he'd like see his dad, he would literally tremble from fear, and he'd fucking vomit he'd literally like vomit his guts out.
I'm scared. So scared that I would regurgitate.
You would vomit?
Mm-hmm.
When would you vomit? Well, what would produce that sort of reaction in you?
His presence. Just seeing him.
And it's like, bro, like it's like the death just showed up at your doorstep or some shit. You're just like, imagine being that scared of someone that their presence alone instills enough fear for you to be like, bleh, you just fucking vomit everywhere, bro. That I never heard of that before. And then with Neiman, it's not really known what really happened with him, because the movie kind of just ends with him just doing that insane solo, and it just ends there. But the director did say, I heard, that Neiman most likely he ends up becoming a shell of a person, and he dies in his 30s from like a drug overdose. It's kind of like a foreshadowing, because they're talking about that at like the table, where basically he's saying like, yo, so I'd rather die of like I'd rather be a junkie and die of an overdose in my 30s and be remembered and talked about at dinner tables, than to be live happy and sober and to be forgotten about after I died, and also live a long life. And it kind of makes sense for Neiman to die like that, because he ended up having, like, to get to where he is, he had to basically speed run having a shit life. He had to cut off everyone from his life. He had to cut off his girlfriend. He's going out with a woman. He stopped talking to his family and all, and he became like a dickhead to like one of his only friends. It seemed like that college. He's like, "Hey, Johnny Utah, turn my pages, bitch."
Hey, you fuck off, Johnny Utah. Turn my pages, bitch.
You know, the second bro told him to, back off when he was arguing with Fletcher. So yeah, those would be like the outcomes. Mike had it better because he also escaped his father's grasp and was able to do quite a lot of good in this world. Neiman, he just ended up succumbing to Fletcher's kind of ideologies and ended up finally gaining Fletcher's approval. He gained Daddy's approval for being a good drummer. With Fletcher, he could have left whenever he wanted. He didn't have to go to that school. He chose to put that shit on himself. With Jackson, he had no choice, and pretty much that was me comparing Fletcher and Joe and Fletcher. Who do I think is worse? I'm going to be like saying obviously Joe is a lot worse than Fletcher. Apart from the fact that it's real life versus fiction, a lot of the stuff that Fletcher done is bad, but Joe done all of that, but just like times 10. He done that to like a much more extreme degree, and he's even so much more delusional about it as well. But yeah, that's just me talking about Fletcher and Joe. See you later.